that was not the worst thing I could have said probably, but I called him beef, and luckily he was not too offended, but it was just, I was so embarrassed by that. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for joining, and if you've already subscribed, thank you so much. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience learning the Vietnamese culture as an American daughter-in-law. So it was not super easy for me, and so that's why I want to share a couple little stories about how I learned all of the different cultural aspects that I know today and I'm able to practice easily. The reason that I do want to share this is because I believe that my openness and willingness to learn the culture is what has allowed me to have such a good relationship with Hui's family at this point. So if you are also in a relationship with someone from Vietnam, I hope that these stories are helpful to you so that way you can learn that while in the beginning it may not be easy, it's totally worth it. In the beginning, I was so clueless about everything related to Vietnamese culture. Hui had told me a few things, but from what I had heard, it was really stressful for not stressful, but it was a lot of pressure for me to say things correctly because his family's actually from the north, which is a little more traditional than the south. So they do live in Ho Chi Minh City now, but they're all from Hai Phong. So in the beginning, I was so nervous. I was going to offend somebody if I said something wrong or made a mistake. So of course, I think I started on a really good first impression. So when I first came to Vietnam in 2013, Hui and his parents came to pick me up at the airport, and then I was actually able to greet them with the polite pronouns. So I think this is I'm so glad I did this because I feel like this just opened up the whole relationship to be as positive as possible. So I just said "Cháu chào hai bác," which is a polite way of saying hello to somebody who is around your parents' age, but you give them the more respectful term. So I said "Cháu chào hai bác," and they gave me flowers, and it was so amazing. I that day is still a blur to me because I was so nervous, but I will never forget just outside of Sân bay Tân Sơn Nhất. I was, oh my god, and there was a bunch of people around. It was crazy. So I definitely feel like that set us off to a good start with me coming into his family. But things were not always perfect. So a little while later, we had already got married. So we got married in July 2013, but we ended up staying with his family in Ho Chi Minh City for about 40 days. And I remember one day at dinner, I was actually given permission, obviously, to call his parents bố mẹ. So bố is dad and mẹ is mom. And in the beginning, I was so bad at pronunciations because all of my studying was through reading and writing. And so one night at dinner, I don't remember what we were talking about, but I was talking to his dad and I called him bò. And so after I said that, he was just like, "You just called him beef!" And I was so embarrassed because that's such a bad mistake. So I was supposed to say bố and I said bò. So that was one of the things that was super embarrassing in the moment, but obviously I'm laughing now because it's just a funny mistake and also a good lesson for me to know how to pronounce things correctly. But in Vietnamese, there's a lot of words like that where you can accidentally say something really horrible. That was not the worst thing I could have said probably, but I called him beef, and luckily he was not too offended, but it was just, I was so embarrassed by that. So of course, learning pronouns is super hard for all of the people in the family. So the first thing I actually learned when I was learning Vietnamese, if you watched my How I Learned Vietnamese video, I mentioned this. Hui taught me the pronouns for all of the different people in your family. And so of course I knew them, but it was still really hard to learn. And I think one of the times it was so funny is normally when his family members would come over, we would prepare me in advance. So if somebody's coming, he'd be like, "Chú, chú, cháu chào chú," and I'd be like, "Okay, chú," and then I would just say, "Cháu chào chú," and then they'd laugh and be so delighted. But there was his cousin who came over And I was like so confident. I knew like, oh yeah, I know that she's older than me, so I'll call her Chị. So I said, Em chào chị. And then everybody, like, she looked so like delighted, I guess, and everyone started laughing, and I was like, what's so funny? And they're like, well, actually, she is your Em, you are Chị. And I was like, wait, what? Because she's actually, I think, 5 years older than me, so I just assumed like, okay, with the respect on the chart, she's older, so I have to call her Chị. But turns out she is Hui's mom's younger brother's daughter, so she's like a little below us on the family respect chain. So I had no idea, and I just confidently said Em chào chị, and she was just laughing. So now it makes even more sense. I think it's easier for me to learn the different like family relationships and the pronouns when you actually know somebody with that relationship. So now I will never forget like that, depending on the who's related to who, where they are on the chain. And it gets even more complicated because my sister-in-law has a daughter. You've seen her in the videos, Sop. And Sop actually has an aunt who is younger than her. Yeah, so Sop right now, she's almost 5, and her aunt is like 3 or 4 years old. So that's because Hui's mom and her brother are actually 20 years apart, which kind of made the chain move like this. So then when her brother had a child, it's technically the same generation as Hui's sister, like this. So then that would mean that this baby is the aunt of Hui's sister's baby. What? So I think that's like the most complicated part of learning Vietnamese culture for me as a foreigner, because in America and in English we just say I and you, and people have titles, but like in that case probably we would just call them cousins. Like the two young kids, we would just say, oh, that's your cousin. In America we wouldn't say that's your aunt. So it's very interesting to learn these family roles and everything else. So even though language wasn't the easiest for me, I tried my best to show my respect for elders in other ways besides speaking, because in the beginning I was really shy to say anything. Like I said, I didn't want to offend anybody or say something wrong. So in the beginning I tried to learn all of the like different ways to show your respect through action. So one of the ways that I learned this, and it took a long time to learn because it's just a little bit confusing for me, but when you actually give, so here's my cell phone, if you give something to somebody older than you, you actually have to use 2 hands like this. And in America we don't have this custom, so I would always just like pass the bowl of rice, I would just, and then we would always be like 2 hands, 2 hands, 2 hands, 2 hands, 2 hands, and I'd be like, oh my god, I know, stop. And so I would get so mad at him for like always like yelling at me. But now I'm just glad he did, because I quickly learned the customs and was able to show respect a lot easier without my language skills. So in the beginning I was just like, oh my god, you're so annoying, stop yelling at me, this is like so stressful. But now I'm actually quite good at it. So if you're passing something, here, you should pass it with 2 hands, and if they're like super far away, like way over there, and you can't reach with 2, just put 1 hand on your arm and do this. So that's like something that I learned, and now when we go to Vietnam I actually get so used to doing it that when I get back to America, then I'm just like, oh, here you go. And it looks so like too polite and like kind of strange, but I just pick it up sometimes. And so then let me think, the last super important one that I learned in the beginning, which I think was so good. So I told you that I was able to say Châu chào hai bác when I met his parents, but even better, I was able to invite all of the family members to eat before a meal in Vietnamese. So in traditional Vietnamese culture, before you start eating, you're supposed to invite everybody who's older than you to eat first. So you would say like, I invite grandpa and grandma to eat, I invite dad and mom to eat, I invite older brothers and older sisters to eat. And then once you say that, they will say something back to you like, okay, you can eat, and then you can eat. So So that's like the polite way of doing it. So I was so proud of myself because I actually worked super hard to learn this before coming. So I was able to, well, I was gonna say with ease, but I had to say it extremely slowly. So I just was like sitting at the table and I said, cháu chào bà ăn cơm, con mời bố mẹ ăn cơm, em mời anh chị ăn cơm. And then like everybody was so excited and happy for me that I was able to do that. And I was happy too, because for Hui's family, they all value this kind of traditional customs. Like his dad he's modern and he's a little more relaxed, but they still like to uphold these traditions. Even though a lot of people in the South or a lot of young people don't really do this anymore. For example, I had a meal with my friend. Her name is Nguyen. She's from Da Nang, and her mom came to Ho Chi Minh City for our wedding. So I went out to eat with them, and before we started eating, I invited her mom to eat, and she was so like shocked and surprised because in their family they don't even do that anymore. Like it's not something that they do on a daily basis. But in Hui's family, you always invite, always. Even I learned this, even if no one else is gonna eat, you still have to invite the people to eat. Like if you're just gonna sit down and have a quick bowl of rice, you have to invite everybody no matter what, like whoever's present. Not like if grandma's sleeping, then you just invite her because she's not there. But so anyway, that was my favorite cultural custom that I have been able to learn and do well and show my respect for Hui's family. And honestly, I just feel like all of these little stories, they're fun to look back on, but they also just make me so happy to remember how far I've come. Because when I met Hui, I liked geography, but I literally didn't even know what the capital of Vietnam was. I knew nothing about his country, his culture, his language, anything, but I was still able to learn all of these things, and for that I'm like super proud of myself, because I think that if I was not interested in learning these things and if I just didn't do anything, then probably we wouldn't have this good of a relationship. I don't even know if we would have lasted, because probably if I was that horrible, then he probably wouldn't want to be with me. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed hearing these little cultural stories. Comment down below if you want to hear more of them, because I would love to share more. And also, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because next week I'm going to share my top 10 tips for impressing your Vietnamese family or Vietnamese in-laws, because I feel like I have 10 good ones that you should learn before you meet them, or if you've already met them, maybe you can still learn just to help your relationship with them a little bit more. Because I feel like for me, I'm so lucky that I have the relationship that I do with Hui's family, and I'm 100% sure it's mostly because of my eagerness to learn and to respect their culture. So give this video a thumbs up if you like it. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!